All right. Good Saturday morning to everybody out there. It is episode 260 of Hobby Hotline. We are on every Saturday at this time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, and the first Tuesday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. I am joined today by Mr. Danny Black and Mike from Junk Wax Hero. Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Hey,
How are
John.
you? How are you guys doing?
Never been better. This is it right here. This is peak
This,
Mike.
this is living your best life.
Yep.
We also are scheduled to have a gentleman call in, Mike Magnusarian, who is the promoter of the Cranston show. They just did last weekend, very recently, what is being tabbed as the first ever outdoor card show. It took place. We have some questions about that and how it went and what it looked like for as us three did not attend, unfortunately. But if anyone in the chat did, feel free to comment how it was, what you thought, that sort of thing. He'll be calling in a little bit later on into the show. Guys, the first topic, and we don't have to spend a ton of time, but Michael Eisner, who took a loss with the Fanatics Tops deal, got one in the left side column with a deal he just made with the Bazooka gum business, which is the Tops candy brand. Fanatics did not get that in the acquisition, and this thing sold for $700 million, and to me, that seems a lot. It even seems like a lot when you realize that it was rumored that allegedly Fanatics acquired Tops for $500 million. So the candy portion, if you will, went for uh, 200, uh, 200 million more than the sports card line did, and that struck me as is kind of interesting. Your thoughts here, guys, and again, it's not a direct hobby story, but it has some tentacles there.
Well, I think Michael had bought this separate a couple years back. Uh, Mike, you know better than I do, but I thought it was around 300 million.
He paid 385 million for it in 2007. So he just about doubled his money in 16 years. America has a sweet tooth. Candy sells. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, what I mean, I know Bazooka Gum, but I think Ring Pops are part of this line. I mean, I don't know what else. I don't know. I'm sure I got some of my cavities from Top's candy line, but you know, Eisner, like Mike said, paid what 300 million for this, so he came out profitable, made up probably some of the loss from the SPAC not going live, thanks to Fanatics. But you know, uh,
Can we talk about how much free gum he must have had?
I don't know. You think Michael Eisner chews gum? I think
Oh,
he has someone chew gum for him. I don't think he chews his own gum. Like Jerry Jones has someone clean his glasses and then hand it to him. I think Michael Eisner has somebody, uh, chew gum for him. Obviously, I jest, but it's a W. I know I picked on him. I don't know if I picked on him, but I said when that Fanatics deal happened, Michael Eisner's not used to like coming out on the short end of the stick. So I'm like, there's a lot of holes in his office that day, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that place. Here he does get to go, and I don't know what else he owns or he's involved in, but he's not a young guy anymore, so kind of going out with maybe going out with a W here and a little bit of a maybe a safe face to some of the investors that he deals with. Last time we talked about Michael Eisner, he was probably giving bad news to some of his investors. Now he has a bit of good news to share with them. So, 200 more million than the Topps card brand, which I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I would have guessed that the card brand would have been more than the candy brand, but like Mike said, and Danny, people love candy, and probably more people eat candy than truthfully collect cards, even though both of those are in the millions. Mike, any kind of, I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on this one, but I definitely wanted to, more for fairness because I beat him up on the deal he lost. I wanted to kind of, yeah, fair, balance reporting. So I thought we would.
Well, I just like the nostalgia thinking of Bazooka. That to me was the most fun part. Is just talking about Bazooka gum and thinking about that from when we were younger. That to me was the fun part.
Good clarifying comment from 1 million Cubs, and
Yes.
his first name is escaping me here. I'm sorry.
So,
Bo.
But thank you. Eisner bought the entire Topps business for $385, so that included the cards, and I had forgotten about that. So thank you. So between the 500 million and the 700 million, he tripled his money.
Yeah. So again, he wins. I mean, the SPAC deal cost the money, but he finds a way, and that's the magic of Eisner. He finds a way to come out smelling good at the end, and so he kind of saves a little face, if you will. I'm sure he's still pretty disappointed in the whole fanatics thing, but here he kind of gets one in the left column instead of the right. All right, guys. I don't any final comments. I don't
I,
think it's a hot
I think
button
I
topic,
think
but
we've chewed that one enough.
okay. All right, that's what I figured. All right, the other big news is Beckett, and let me put that banner up here. Beckett making some more changes. This is a tweet from Darren Ravel. Beckett has informed employees that it has let go Jeremy Murray. Jeremy Murray, someone I know personally, and Andrew Meadow. Murray was the president who oversaw the daily ops at BGS for BAS, their auto and ticket division, VHS, and comic authentication. Meadow was mostly responsible for the Beckett Collect app. Murray was there a long time, 18 years, and very popular, and goes on to say that people in Dallas are not very happy with that decision. I will also add that the firings were done via email, guys, which I have my thoughts there. Not very classy. And Jeremy Murray was told he wouldn't be traveling to the most recent national in Chicago. So the writing was kind of on the wall there, but still, whether you expect it or not, you know, I've been fired once in my life. It was done in person, which for the 2 cents it's worth, I appreciate. I think it always should be done like that rather than an email. Just kind of your thoughts, guys. Maybe how it was done, where Beckett is going under Kevin Isaacson, and that sort of thing. We were all at the National. I went by the Beckett booth on numerous occasions. The busiest it was when Dr. Jim was there, meeting people, signing things, photo ops, talking with people. But your thoughts here?
Yeah, and we're in this chat, the hobby hotline private chat about things that have happened and what we're going to discuss. And somebody commented that it was shocking, and I didn't think to ask them. It may have been shocking that Jeremy Murray was fired, but was it surprising? And I don't have these relationships that you guys have. I don't know Jeremy Murray or Andrew Metal, but just I got back into the hobby in 2020, and I hear people talk about how Beckett used to be number one, 1A, 1B with PSA for grading, and they are not anymore. And how long had Jeremy Murray been the CEO or had been in charge of Beckett grading, etc.? Was it
Like 18 years.
18 years? And they effectively, they didn't collapse, but they plummeted since 2020 from where they were to third or maybe even fourth. I saw a ton of people grading CSG cards at the National. I saw a lot of CSG slabs at the National. I saw plenty of Beckett too, but I feel like there was more CSG, ultra modern. And so it's what's surprising to me, what's shocking to me, is that he wasn't fired sooner.
Yeah. Go ahead, Danny.
I want to piggyback on that because I agree pretty strongly with what Mike said. The point I was going to make was everybody's complaining about everything Beckett's done. Everybody's talking about Beckett not being what they used to be. Everybody's talking about their lack of innovation. And look what they were in charge of. They were in charge of the areas that everybody's complaining about. I mean, the Beckett Marketplace app is a joke. They have all the data in the world, and I can say the three of us probably rarely, if ever, use it. And how, to Mike's point now, how can you justify keeping somebody in a position where the product is not doing what it should do? So the difference between shocking and surprising, there is a difference. And they might be tremendous gentlemen. You've interviewed Jeremy Murray, and you know him better than I do, but being a good person and being there a long time when a company goes downhill is a tough position to be in.
Yeah, and I agree. Like the track record was not good. I mean, I think the proof's in the pudding. I'm not necessarily defending that he shouldn't have or should have been fired. I don't think he has a if it's a court case to whether you stay on or you're let go. It's an uphill battle. But when I found out it was via email, that kind of bothered me from a personal sort of perspective. You got to fire somebody, call them in your office and just say, hey, we're going in a different direction, or you did this and it's not good, or whatever. However you want to, you can be as mean or as pad the blow as much as you want. At the end of the day, they still got to clean their office out and take a hike. So, but do that. To me, that's got to be done in person. We're not talking about a boyfriend breaking up with a girlfriend via text and not in. This is there's families involved. Even though it's one person losing their job, there's a lot attached to that. So I just think do that. You're gonna make that decision. Be a man, right? I've been in positions where I've had to let people go or tell them that they no longer continue. I always do it. I always did it in person. I always tried to be as nice about it as I could, and that's just how I feel about it.
I think that it's a shame that it was by email, but when you're asked to not go to the national, that's a pretty strong signal. At that point, he was probably packing up the desk.
Yeah, I think he knew. I haven't talked to him, that recently since this has happened, or even since his non-appearance at the national, right? But you're with a company 18 years. I think you deserve, at least to be fired, face to face. I've heard people say, "Listen, John, what difference does it make? You're out your job, whether it's via email or the big boss tells you right to your face, clean out your desk. What the end of the day, it's the same result. It's just etiquette and a respect thing. I'm with a company 18 years. At least I have to come in anyway, right, to get my stuff, clean out my office. Just do it that way. That's just my personal thing. I think it's sort of cowardly to just fire off an email saying you're done, and you got to come in the building unless they're going to actually literally have someone go through his stuff and then hand them a box to pick up. Which again, I don't know if that's the case, but
usually nowadays they'll pack up your stuff for you and ship it to you.
Yeah, see, I don't like that. I don't like that. Now I get it.
There's proprietary information. That's the issue.
Yeah, I get it. But a lot of times you see someone gets let go, and there's somebody from security that just kind of is around them as they pack their stuff up, just to make sure nothing too crazy occurs, and then as they leave, escorts them out, and that's the end. But I don't know. The whole email thing bothers me that it was done via email. How the office is packed up is actually secondary.
Can we talk about the flip side? What does this mean
Sure.
for the progress of Beckett? Is this continued, progress in the right direction? Does this mean that they're taking the app and the other parts seriously?
Well, here's Adam with hashtag make Beckett great again.
I love
Uh,
that.
you know, uh,
Beckett, you don't fire your CEO or president, whatever his title was, to keep doing the same things. They're going to bring somebody in who has big ideas and will turn the company around, or has plans to turn the company around. It doesn't mean that they actually will, but they will certainly try.
yeah, and then that's what Kevin Isaacson, who is now the CEO, who worked at Beckett before, went to Southern Hobby, but is a hobby guy, right? That was the big criticism with the Kunal Chopra hire was this guy's from the tech space. He doesn't have a hobby background. I think that was a bad. I said it when they hired Mr. Chopra, and it wasn't a personal thing. I thought that wasn't a great hire, and I think that what we've seen since then kind of indicates that he's no longer he's moved on as well, and so they have a hobby guy in Isaacson, who I don't know, but I know people who know him who say he's a no nonsense, let's get this done kind of guy. Doesn't really necessarily care about feelings or breaking eggshells. He's kind of on a mission, so that might make sense if that's how he is.
Ruben has a great comment here. Is this the first sign that Fanatics may purchase Beckett? And I hadn't considered this, but Fanatics would be looking for a company with strong brand recognition that isn't as valuable as they once were, but could be semi easy to turn back around.
Well, does Fanatics need to slow down a little bit with the lawsuits? Um, I'm just curious. I'm not the lawyer here.
Philly Joe's, Beckett needs an IT overhaul. Been waiting in a queue 1.5 years for the new app. So, they've got a lot of things to fix. That's why they're in the position they're in, guys. If it was a small fix here and there, they probably wouldn't have lost the market share they've had.
Can I give a shout out though to the Beckett Marketplace? You can buy from local card shops in your area if they're on there, and support them that way. And a lot of them don't put out their whole inventory. So I got a local card shop that has 100,000 cards on the Beckett Marketplace, and there's no singles in the actual store. So just a thought if you've never been on there.
Here's a interesting topic from Charles T. He says too many hobby guys are running the hobby companies into the ground. I mean, kind of what are our thoughts? I don't know if I'm not even, I'm going to play the middle of the road here. I'm not saying I completely disagree, but I don't think it's because they're hobby guys necessarily.
And who's being run
It
into the
just
ground?
might not be.
Who's the hobby guy that ran a hobby company into the ground?
And they just might not be the right guy for that job. But if you're asking me, if I own Beckett, I want someone who has their finger on the pulse of the hobby being my CEO, not somebody from the tech space necessarily, right? And so I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, anybody can run a company into the ground if they make poor decisions.
I could pay me millions. I would be happy to run your company into the
I'll
ground.
I'll do it for $1 less than Mike C will. We'll play prices right on the show.
I mean, who's been run into the ground other than what we've been talking about?
And Beckett wasn't run by a hobby guy.
That was the whole problem.
Yeah. Great comment from Steve Clifton here. Too many innovations in the modern hobby the youngins gravitate to. That's a great point. Which companies are innovating and innovating fast as technology evolves as fast as it is and software evolves? The companies that can adapt to that are the ones that are going to survive and thrive.
Yeah, and guys, I'm sure you've seen it. We were all at the National. There was a lot of new companies there, even with whether it was a little small setup or a little, medium-sized setup, including a couple that I've never even heard of until I saw them at the National. And many of these companies, let's be honest, and I know me and Danny have talked about this, many of these companies do similar things. And I hate to say it, but there's no way in my mind they're all going to make it, right? It's like, salmon swimming upstream. Some of them will make it, some of them won't, and so some of it may be luck, some of it may be the CEO and some of the decisions they make. As these companies try to establish themselves. But it's a great point that we just read. Sometimes I think some of these established companies think because of their name recognition, they can kind of sit on their hands, and I don't think that's always the case. You gotta keep up with the hobby, with the other companies that are bringing that innovation. And if you don't, you run the risk of losing your grip and your spot. You can fall off, and I think that's what happened with Beckett. And Kevin Isaacson's trying to bring that back, or at least some portion of it back. Will they ever be? If you ask me, I don't think they'll ever be what they were at their peak. I'm not just saying this because he's a friend of ours and mine, but a lot of that, they lost a lot when Dr. Jim left after the sale, and so they're trying to get some of that back. And keep in mind, Dr. Jim has a relationship there still, and is giving them, as he said on this show and others, he's giving them some input. So I'm sure that will help. If he's a smart guy, as we all know, and depending on what they do, they're not dead. They're not dead, at least not yet. But they're we're going to see it. Kevin Isaacson has got a job to do. From what I've been told about him, he's not shy, and he'll do whatever. He'll break some eggs if he thinks that's what he needs to do to make the omelet, to use an analogy. So, that's where we're at, and I just don't like an email firing. It's not my favorite thing to do. A couple comments, guys, we can get to from Rex. Beckett's in a tough spot. The younger generation clearly prefers a 1 to 10 grading scale, but how will they satisfy those customers without alienating their traditional fans? Yeah, how do you balance both worlds, right? The new folks and the traditional folks.
It's baffling to me that 9.5 is gem mint on Beckett, and they give what every other company would consider a 10.
Well, it wasn't for 5 minutes, and then it was again.
I know, a couple times. But when you're grading cards, you want your cards to come back as 10s, and you're happier when they're 10s. You want a higher percentage as 10s, and Beckett's just like, now we're going to give you a lower percentage that are 10s because we think 9.5 is good enough. But you don't get that rush from a 9.5. Maybe you do. I don't know. I don't.
Well, I'd rather have the 10 like everyone else in the world, but yeah, you're right.
But a 9.5 doesn't mean you would have gotten a 10. A 9.5 could have been a 9.
What percent of 9.5s with Beckett cross to 10 with Beckett or SGC?
I would be curious on when they're crossed, how many are 9s and how many are 10s.
Yeah, I don't know. How do you I don't know if someone did
I'll talk to Ryan Szynski from Gem Red and see.
Yeah, see if
see
he
if
has
we can get
anything
an
on
answer.
that.
I see videos frequently where people have bought 9.5s from Beckett, sent them to PSA, and they all crossed at 10s. That's very small sample size. That's not scientific at all.
Yeah. Charles T responded to kind of our take on his initial comment. He says Top steals Panini's top guys. They ran Panini into the ground. Now they get a free ride for a few years. We need innovation, not recycled hobby guys. PSA was mismanaged for years until they were fired. I will say this: there is, and I don't care. This is not even a hobby thing, guys. This is just a workforce environment. There's no substitute for experience in the profession. Now there's you could say, well, they're experienced, but they're lazy, or they're set in their ways. All right, that's an individual thing, but someone who's been in the hobby, who's wore maybe a few different hats, they're valuable, whether you like it or not, or whether you think they're the game has passed them by, to use a sports analogy or a manager or coach analogy. They still know the ins and outs of the hobby, and I think that we shouldn't poo-poo that. Now, does that mean someone from the hobby with a lot of experience can't make multiple mistakes or maybe think a little bit too much in the past? Sure, but I think that's more of an individual basis than just saying every guy with 20 years hobby experience stinks now because they're not in touch with the current hobby. I don't think that's fair to them to paint with that kind of broad brush, but I guess we do. Some people do it. Um, I agree. Fresh perspectives are nice too. I think it's probably more of that balance, right? Some of the experience with people with new ideas kind of coming together and kind of taking a company or brand to maybe what they hope is the next level.
Davis has a comment. A pop 50 really means a pop 350. While I disagree with the math there, I do think that he brings up a good point that we should have a master pop report. And I think, Danny, you just mentioned the company. What is it? Gem Mint.
I've been fighting and praying for this for so long. You have no idea. I could not agree more.
Yeah. If we had a master pop report where you could just quickly look up how many 1989 Ken Griffey Jr. upper decks have been graded.
And that might be scary if that number ever really.
Well, I can tell you it's the grading companies that don't want to do it.
Yeah, they're not going to release their API for something like that.
Yeah.
And Charles, I agree with experience is valuable, but if they don't have the ability to adapt, then they shouldn't need to come. I agree with that statement. That's the one, Charles T. I guess that's what I was kind of saying in a longer fashion than you did, but succinct into the point there. Yeah, I think you have to. If you're experienced, there's value there, but you also, what worked in 1985 or 1995 might not work in 2023, and you have to have the ability to adjust and make those changes for the modern times. So I agree.
That's actually Nat Turner.
It's Beckett calling. They're mad.
Right. I have that Griffey in a 9.5 BGS slab. Well, there you go. Sooner history, if you ever cross that over, we want to expand our sample size of crossover. So let us know which way it goes.
So here's it. Here's Sooner history. I have that Griffey in a 9.5 BGS slab. And Victor's point here too. This is always something that I always think about when people like crack and resub that proper court. It was obviously going to be inaccurate. We know that, but still, it does, and that happens a lot more than we think. I've actually only done it one time.
I think it happens way less than we think.
Yeah, you think it happens way less?
Oh yeah, I think it's well under 1%, like 1/10 of 1% of all graded cards ever get
crossed over,
cracked. Yeah,
yeah. I agree with you.
I think it's higher than 1%. What is it? I don't know. So sorry, guys.
No, it's all right. Sooner history. I'm thinking about it. Well, yeah. Let us know. Card Ladder has a master. No, it does not. It has a lot of information, but it does not have all the major companies. And they do not have all the cards. Yeah, Adam, I love Card Ladder. I use it all the time. I wish it had the master. It's very close. I consult with a couple different companies in this space. Getting a master list of every card ever made and 12 new releases a week is a logistical challenge for these companies.
All right, guys. We're waiting for Mr. Magnusarian to link in. Let's tackle this while we wait. He should be here any second. We'll tackle this, and then we can come back after too as well. A big story that kind of broke this week is flawless resealed boxes. Apparently, 21-22 flawless basketball. To be exact, this happened with a overseas breaking outfit called Beijing Love Cards. they broke some of this 21-22 product on an app called Hobby Stocks app, which is the Chinese equivalent of Whatnot, and cards that came out of these boxes and cases were cards that were listed for sale on eBay and other selling platforms. They had already been unearthed, or so to speak, or pulled out, and now they're miraculously back in, a sealed product. It was made apparent to them. Kudos to Beijing Love Cards. They reimbursed anyone who bought into that break. They gave full refunds, and I guess somebody asked them, "Well, where did you get your cases of flawless 21-22 basketball?" And one of the suppliers they mentioned, or distributors they mentioned, was Dave and Adams Card World. And Mike, you said that David Adams has issued a statement. I haven't seen that. Do you know what they said?
I was looking for it. I'm pretty sure I saw one where they just said, "Yeah, we buy third party products all the time, and we know they do because they're always advertising. We're looking for 1984 tops. We're looking for 2020 flawless, uh, and so people will buy them from there." The thing that is, and I think this is extraordinarily rare that people are repacking cards that they have bought, but do we need to know like they're showing the seal? There's a seam on the box that wasn't there that would be if it had been factory sealed, and obviously they're not getting a BBCE sealed, and I don't know if people still fully trust BBCE anyway,
Yeah.
but
Well, and they would have got GI Joe cards instead of your RPA.
yeah, it's really interesting because it looked good. It looked like a legitimate box, but somebody had bought the cards off of a website in China called Card Hobby, like eBay in China apparently, and then repacked them. And they presumably kept the good cards, the really good cards, and put in the junk and the junk numbered cards. Who knows? Yeah, it's interesting. If you're going to buy cards from DA Card World or any other company that buys third hand, second hand, whatever, you just got to be careful.
And
Yeah,
sometimes, like we're talking about here, it sounds like Beijing sports cards had nothing to do with this, or it appears that way. And
Yep.
Mike's point about DA, and a lot of people don't understand this. DA gets their supply of cards from regular supply sources, but because they carry older years, older sets, they also have like a classified, a wanted section. So that box of flawless right now, they had that they're still buying those boxes at $17,000 a case. So if you have a case of those cards, you have $17,000 reason to sell it to David Adams. So if somebody's going to go through, David Adams is kind of responsible to me for the making sure it's legit, whatever they have to do.
Rex says it's a plausible explanation from DA Card World. Another plausible explanation would be that there's a dishonest employee inside David Adams. These cards were sold in China, though. I don't know. It's such a strange mess of details.
yeah.
Yes.
There's so many different involvement here. I want to read. Not a fan of read. I'm not a fan. Zach Pearson, not a fan of resealed flawless. I'm not a fan of anything resealed. I think that's usually a recipe for disaster. But he's for simpler times when people were reading codes and just buying singles.
Just
Mad
buy single.
City,
That's right.
yeah. How can people keep trusting any breakers? It's tough. I agree. You just got, there's more really good breakers than bad ones. That's the good part. But when these stories do break, Mad City, I agree with you. It does put sort of a black eye on the whole thing. And I've had, in talking to breakers, I'm like, how do you deal with when someone else has a misstep and you're kind of lumped in just as a breaker? And they all really answer the same. Like, there's nothing we can do other than just do we continue to do the right things, and hopefully everyone else does as well. And in this case, like Danny pointed out, and I mentioned too, and Beijing Love Cards, the breaker here, they got to get their product right, to serve their customers' needs. When they buy a product from a Dave and Adams or whoever else, right, they have to go with the assumption that it's sealed, it's legit. Uh, I'm glad that they issued refunds. I think the problem would be if they say, "Hey, Dave and Adams screwed up. Go to them and complain." But they did the right thing and said, "Here's your money back. You shouldn't. This shouldn't have happened." And now, Dave and Adams will respond as well. But how do you avoid it? I think it's tricky. I think you find, if you're into breaking, you like buying into breaks, you got to find a breaker. Ask people, do your research, and find one you really like or can trust, or others can vouch for. But mistakes can happen. I mean, I don't even think this Beijing Love Cards. I don't think it was their fault. I think they just got sold some bad boxes.
They showed the receipt from Dave and Adams,
Yeah,
and they showed the pictures of them scanning it in. Yeah. So listen, that's far from 100% proof of anything happening on their end, but
it's pretty compelling.
Would you say
it's pretty compelling though?
It is. That's exactly my point. So to me, this gets back to David Adams even admitting that it's a third party issue. But Rex made a great point. And he runs a couple of card shops, and internal theft is in the retail biz is far more rampant than external theft. And that's a comment to maybe David Adams. It was an internal employee or something like that. I would reckon with all the product that they have go through there at those prices, it would be pretty tempting for a lot of their employees.
Yeah, and someone will say, well, how does that happen, right? Well, maybe an employee who's opened some of that product already takes a case or two home, opens them up, pulls out those big cards, puts in some of their cards that they previously opened that aren't as big. They got a shrink wrap machine, right? And they shrink wrap it and bring it back to their workplace and put it back on the shelves. And that's where the missing seams came in, were reported on some of these messed with boxes or cases. And Flawless, for those that don't know, Flawless is a metal briefcase. So someone opened that, pulled the cards, it looks like, anyway. We don't know who, but Rex brings up a point. Could be an employee that has some of this product already that they've bought personally. They say, hey, I'm going to pull the big ones out of these cases and bring it back to Dave and Adams, where I work, and just switch them out. And then they'll be sold somewhere else, and no one will know it's me. Now, I like to think, Dave and Adams has camera systems. Maybe they can get to the bottom of exactly how this happened.
If they didn't before, they do now.
Yeah, so we have some finger of blame. The point specifically, where the buck stops, so to speak. But unfortunately, I hate to say it, it's probably not the last time we're going to hear. Maybe not with Flawless, but another product. But these stories are probably going to happen, unfortunately, every once in a while.
Let's throw Sammy's comment up there, not because it's scientific proof of my point, but because it definitely helps my point. So,
well, that's the most important thing. We want to make sure we want to make sure Mike is right here.
3/4 of Sammy's, and could be
somewhere between 70.
It's like 90% probably of Sammy's BGS 9.5.
It's like 50%. Sammy's getting like 50-50 here.
3/4 of 9.5s, and it could just be 4 that Sammy has submitted, and 3 of them came back.
Sammy, how many have you submitted?
Probably 25,000 is my guess. Have come back as PSA 10s.
I'm guessing 25.
I'd ask Sammy, but Sammy Ruiz is Mike's burner account. So
that's hysterical.
So unfortunately, I'm kidding.
Can I ask a second question? before
Sure.
Sammy gives us an answer. How do you shrink wrap a box without a heat seal? That's
Well,
just
you
You
that
need some
blows me away.
scammers on. I sometimes think I've had a scammer comment on my video explaining how to do it, and I said, "Hey, not do that specifically, but do another scam." And I said, "Hey, come on my channel. I would love to interview you about how you pull these scams off." And he refused. But yeah, I mean, if you can get a scammer on and explain how they do it, I think that would be great
I
content.
listen. I was on not a few months back. I was on Facebook Marketplace looking for like a card collection or a lot of cards that people were selling, and something that one of the items that came up in that search was someone selling a shrink wrap machine, a heat sealing shrink wrap machine. I had no interest, but you can buy one. I could have bought one
Here's
if I had an interest, right? So
here's a very relevant story. Just this morning, I watched on Netflix a documentary called Untold Hall of Shame. It's about the Balco steroid scandal. And they were so advanced that somebody gave the government a syringe of whatever Balco had created, and it still took them 4 months. They're scientists, 4 months to figure out what was in there, which is what allowed them to create a test that busted people. They're these guys are so sophisticated, to Rex's point.
Yeah, and this gets back into, you know, John. I think you're muted. Um, this gets back into how much money somebody working at a store can make when you're dealing with the high end products. I mean, Rex is talking about 75K over 9 months. That's real money.
Yeah. I don't know what
Yeah,
Rex's revenue is, but that feels very significant to me.
yeah, I think. And so, I don't want to blame anybody, but it I don't think the problem is on the breaker here. I mean, I know people have issues with breakers. I agree with John. I think more are good than are bad, and unfortunately, they're at the mercy of getting the product. Also, I mean, everybody has to get product, and they need a lot of product to break, and sometimes you have to go to third parties and other avenues, and that's where it just gets. I don't want to say shady, but difficult.
all right, guys, let's move on to the last official topic, and hopefully Michael calls in. Maybe this will be the cue. I'll put it on the screen. But this happened last weekend, last Saturday, to be exact. The Sports Card Cranston show took place in North Kingstown, Rhode Island, and it's being tabbed as the first outdoor card show, and I did not attend. If anyone in the chat attended, please post your comments. We're supposed to have the promoter come on and talk about the event. Now, I was talking to you guys before we went live. I did flea markets in the '80s that were outside and had some of my cards blow away when a wind gust would come, and but never. I'm not aware of now. There has been card shows on like stadium concourses, like minor league stadium concourses. So I don't know, is technically that an outside card show, but this was tabbed as the first, outdoor card show. It's pretty neat concept. It had a rain date of the following day, the 13th, so Sunday. If the weather was inclement, we're just going to do this tomorrow. Kind of your thoughts. Is this something that interests you? Is it a novelty? As we all like to go to card shows, right? What do we think of an outdoor card show?
Yeah, it is something that interests me, and I think it is a novelty. I think it's both. I think it's very cool. Just going to a card show that's outside. I would drive 3.5 hours to Cranston, Rhode Island, or North Kingstown, Rhode Island, once just to do an outdoor card show. I think it's just a neat idea, and I'm sure they get publicity just for that instead of just having a standard card show.
I love that they did it at a middle school. I mean, we talk about the importance of getting kids into the hobby. Put a card show at a middle school. You've got all that promotion of all those kids, all the families, and then you have the community. I just think that what a great idea and what a fun way to get people involved instead of a dark room.
All right, Stooks is saying it's
Great
not the
point.
first. I was at
And
an
the
outdoor
sun is tough
show
on
in
cards. Yeah.
1990, small show at the county fair. The sun is tough on cards and autograph. Especially when you have cards in like a glass or plexiglass case, and then you're going to get that glare. Um, heck, that happens indoors if you have lights directly above your table. Um, I know this story made most of the news outlets, SCDs, and that. It's kind of fun, right? You can be outdoors. You know, as a dealer, there's so many things that go through my mind. A gust of wind, as someone has done an outdoor flea market type setting thing, the glare on a sunny day, making cards hard to see. The heat. If you're in I saw a comment if you're in Florida, it's going to be very hot. So there's a whole lot of uh, you know. Uh, different variables, but it's kind of different, right? When I think we like, I think we like different sometimes. I don't think there's anything wrong with it to think outside the box, right? Someone doesn't want to go, they don't go. But like Mike said, he would drive 3.5 hours to check it out and see what the hubbub's about, so to speak. And I don't know if I'd go all the time, but it depending if it's not super far away, it just be make a day trip out of it, right? Go to a restaurant, check out the show, and see what it's all about. So
I love this idea. We need a card show, vintage cards, vintage cards, and obviously outside. That's great.
yeah, has that been done? I mean, I know people are probably into both. So
I drive a Honda, so I don't qualify.
you got a 57 Chevy with the hood up, and then you look under the hood and there's like a 1952 Topps graded Mickey Mantle card there. Like it's a double banger. Like, hey, what kind of engine is that, sir? Oh, look at the Mantle. Like, how'd you get that? You know.
Well, if they throw it in with the car, maybe.
Gives a new name to what's under the hood.
Here's Bo. As a promoter, he says I'd hit up an outdoor show, but wouldn't want to be a promoter one. Yeah, it's a great point, right? It's kind of what I said. You might have dealers complaining, "Hey, man, the sun was there." You can't control that as a promoter. You can't control weather or elements, but listen,
I think you'd
dealers
be
will
nervous.
complain. As a dealer myself, dealers will complain if they think anything was a detriment to how they did or didn't do that day. So yeah, you're going to hear it as a promoter. Sooner
Um,
says, yeah, you want to read it?
yeah, since it's at a middle school, it'd be a good idea to move lower end cards, affordable, and doesn't scare kids and parents off. That was the point I was trying to make before. Is just a way to introduce people to card shows who have never gone.
Yeah, I like that. As someone that has all different, as a dealer who has different price levels of cards, I just make sure I have something for every level. From 25-cent player boxes to my most expensive card in a showcase, whatever that might be, at that time. I mean, the dealers, obviously, you're setting up at a show as a dealer, you never know who's going to come along, who's looking for something. You want to have that card out there. But what I try to do is cover like all those levels and not really exclude everybody. I understand that's not always done. That's just my approach.
Well, I would assume, and maybe Mike knows better than I do. Is this Red Sox country here? Would it be a lot of Tristan Cassis at this show?
Yeah, it's just south of Boston.
Yeah. So I can see, if you were setting up there with all the kids in middle school, it's a lot of Red Sox stars, and it's a great idea. I hope more places do it. It can also be a fundraiser for the schools instead of a bake sale. It's a great idea to get more people involved.
All right, guys. So I don't know. I guess Mike maybe having some difficulty or something came up. Maybe if he calls in, we'll bring him on and kind of get some details. I'm assuming no one went. I don't see any comments saying, "Hey, I went to this; it was great." But again, if Mike does patch in, we'll bring him on, ask him a few questions. Danny, football season started. One thing you brought up is some cards to look out for as football season starts. What do you want to say?
Well, similar to my theory in baseball, a lot of times there's somebody who's coming back from an injury or a weird situation that the cards or the player got a little bit forgotten. And I'm going to throw out Calvin Ridley coming back with Jacksonville. He missed last year for online betting, but he's going to be a number one receiver. I know receivers don't carry a ton of money, but if you're into lower end cards that have some ceiling to them. With Trevor Lawrence in that offense, I love Calvin Ridley, and the rookies. Who knows when those will get released. But as far as guys in the league, still Trevor I think is the best buy for guys going up. I'm high on that Jacksonville offense.
Yeah, I'm a huge Calvin Ridley guy. I have a ton of his stuff, RPAs, probably 20 different autograph cards. He's talent wise, he's the real deal. Got in trouble. He didn't kill anyone. It was a gambling thing. So, he didn't sleep with a
Are those
14.
the only two options? I just want to
No,
know: is it online
you know,
gambling and murder?
he didn't. He didn't.
Or
His girlfriend
Wander
wasn't
Franco.
14 years old.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have that strike against him. I love Calvin Ridley. Trevor Lawrence is making strides. It's amazing what he did under Doug Peterson after the Urban Meyer dumpster fire. That's alliteration, I believe. But Trevor Lawrence is I think one of the next great quarterbacks, and now he's got another weapon. They kind of had to wait a year, which they gladly did, and now they got really a true number one receiver in Jacksonville. I don't remember the last time they had really what I would call a legit number one. Jimmy Smith, remember
And
Jimmy
Keenan
Smith?
McCardell, yep,
Yeah,
that
Jimmy
10.
Smith, who I played Pop Warner football with, by the way, on the same team for 1 year.
How'd that turn out for each of you?
Yeah, not good for me. So that's why I played more baseball. But Jackson, yeah, Trevor Lawrence. Well, we're speaking of quarterbacks, guys, we're seeing a lot of young quarterbacks being named starters already, right? We're all old enough to remember when a quarterback got drafted, right? It'd be 3-4 years before they ever got handed the keys to the car and the offense, right? Now you got guys starting. C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson named the starter with the Colts already, and so a lot of young quarterback talent. Desmond Ritter in Atlanta. He's not a rookie, but a young quarterback. Kenny Pickett with my Steelers. Who I'm. Here's the crazy thing. I'm a Steeler fan. I'm not 100% sold on Kenny Pickett just yet. Like, I like him. I don't love him. I'm hoping all the pundits are right who do love him and think he's going to take that next step. But it's football is a great sport to buy singles in because in some cases you can get them. They're still affordable. And you can kind of get in on the ground level before that ceiling is reached, as Danny pointed out.
Yeah, and I love this comment from Mad City Brew because I think this is true for a lot of sports. Um, Only buy vintage football cards and wait 3 to 5 years before buying current players. Take out the word football, and that's a pretty much a statement that I live by.
Yeah,
So
I was
I
going to say
think,
that.
yeah, well done, Mad City Bro. I agree completely. If I had to
My
summarize,
guy, Mad City.
there you
Yeah,
go.
these guys come into the league as rookies, and their values they have all these Super Bowls and MVPs baked in, or World Series, whatever. And it's by the time they're 23, their values have plummeted because they haven't done what they were expected to do yet, and so that's the best time to buy.
And Wander Franco, I think, has only been in the league for 4 years. So
Wander Franco's been in the league for a year and a half. He was a rookie last year.
I thought he got called up the year before and had the injury. Am I wrong?
I think you're right. All right, we got Mike. Mike is in the green room. We got a few minutes left. Let's bring him on and tackle the Cranston the outdoor show. Mike,
Hi,
welcome to Hobby Hotline.
thank you. It took me 24 minutes.
Uh
Well, 25.
oh. You there? Did we lose you? Oh, there we
Um,
go. All right. Hey, Mike.
Okay.
Just all right. Hey, tell us a little bit about. We might go a few minutes overtime here. Tell us a little bit about the outdoor show from last Saturday.
Oh my God. It was like everything made to order, and God took care of everything. The temperature did not hit 80. The shade was out. The crowd was there. Everything was comfortable and wonderful. And the dealers were all happy with the show. And I know that Sports Collectors Daily is going to break a story on it soon because we sent out press releases, but it was just spectacular in regards to everybody having a great time. And from parents lounging on the field and letting their kids shop for sports cards, it was the fun event of what the hobby should be about. And everybody having fun at an event. And there was plenty of space, plenty of great weather, plenty of collectibles, and plenty of shoppers. I mean, like a promoter couldn't ask.
Was the middle school cooperative? Were they excited to have it?
Well, I learned a lot about this process, and especially when you're dealing with beaches. And that is, they don't run as traditional big cities. And the school department has nothing to do with town. And I had to get it for the town. I had to get permission to school. It was nothing with working coordination. And there's all kinds of laws and nuances that you had to learn. And it was like, oh my God, I canceled the first date because there was so much political maneuvering that I was in a learning curve because I know what I got to do when I'm indoors because they give me the rules and they tell me, I speak to the people who are in charge directly. But here it was just a learning curve. But, the next time, because everybody wants to come back to the same place, I have other places that will let me, but they had such a great time being so close to the ocean and all of the small town activities for a great resort area, and especially being right half a mile from the ocean, it was it just had everything going for it. So, but I had to learn a lot and how towns work. About like, can you hang signs up on telephone poles, which is not permitted. So it was. But like now, next year I'm prepared, and the dealers. I only do my card shows according to what the dealers tell me they want. It's not a card show about me. It's about the public, and it's about the dealers making their experience a positive one. So, they want to go back to this town. So I'm going to start dealing with it in January because the process is so long.
Mike, how many tables was this outdoor show?
Tables, there was about 60.
Okay.
Anywhere between 50 and 60 because dealers were allowed to bring up to 15 tables. It was their choice. They paid a participation fee of $200. They could have brought 5 tables, 15 tables. So, the show had no responsibility. So what I learned was because so many people called, I said, because it was all based on the shade trees in front of the school to make sure, because shade was provided up until about 3 o'clock as the sun kept moving from the early morning. And so I had to ensure that the dealers had shade. I had to know how many tables were coming. So I could only fit about 200 tables in front of the shade trees in front of the school. So if somebody said they were bringing 5 tables and another person was bringing 5 tables, then I knew I could fit, more than 20 dealers. But if everybody was bringing 15 tables, it was going to be like 12 dealers were going to be the maximum if everybody had 15 tables. And this is the perfect venue to show the public, because the one thing that I do best than anything in promoting is that I bring the crowds. And so if the crowds were coming, it was better that you have as many tables out with as much of your stuff as possible, and for the public to be able to shop. I mean, I couldn't believe this was the first show that I did in 6 years, because my regular 2-day card shows sucked the life out of me. And that is Isley's Ice Cream. Baseball discs were the absolute most popular item on my table. Everybody wanted the 1970s. So, and I was going to leave them home. So you can't. And one thing also that all my dealers told me is that 1970s baseball cards pretty hot in just about any category. So, in Isley's, I think 1997, and so, I was absolutely surprised.
So it was.
What was
So
the
Mike,
breakdown between kids and adults? I'm sorry, John.
There were so many more kids, because I had Pokemon was really prominent, and one guy told me that he had these jig bits, which I guess you got to be a millennial and know about it, because he was in tune, and he said the jig bits were the most important things on my table. And so the kids were there, and I mean, they had to outweigh serious collectors. Dealers came because the National just had ended, and they said, I've got no inventory, because Chicago was a big success. So I had one dealer from the National, and I had one dealer prominent in New England that I just said to them, because I knew them so well, why don't you take a chair behind my tables and just go through everything at your leisure, because I've known them for so many years. And but although the dealers were spending the big money and the collectors, the kids were in bigger numbers looking for things. So there was a big attraction with kids, and the dealers and the serious collectors were definitely shopping for serious inventory purchases. So, I mean, I learned. I said, "Gee, I'm sorry."
Great. Not to cut you off. Great idea here from Hammer 44. It says maybe next time you could even add in food trucks to sweeten the show. Right? Everyone loves the food trucks. I know they do those even here in Syracuse. Mike, they'll have like a food truck event with 10 to 15 different types of food trucks and music. But you could even add that to a card show and that sort of thing. So just some food, pun intended, just some food for thought for a future outdoor event. Now speaking of, so it was BYOT, it was bring your own tables, which is kind of a neat concept, right? Like you said, it was just a flat dealer fee, and if you could bring as many tables. Now, what if you had somebody bring like 200 tables and they brought like a big rig or so? Did you have like a limit? Because you obviously the parking lot's only so big.
Yes, there was a limit of 15 tables. Okay. Because I mean, one guy asked me at the Rich Altman show. He said, "Hey, you mean I can bring an 18-wheeler up with like 200 tables?" And so I said, "You have a limit of 15." So they had a limit of 15 so that I could try to coordinate. I've been working on this for 2 years, and I needed a facility that was in a high visibility zone that had lots of shade. Because, dealers have, like when I would set up my Mickey Mantle cards and other things, I put all of my glass cases on the, I'm going to say the left side of the school trees, because the shade was moving, the sun was moving west and to set. So, the left side of the shade trees would have shade all day. So, it's a strategic maneuvering so that way there you can protect your inventory, you can enjoy the outdoors. And I did inquire about food trucks, and the possibilities of getting food trucks is near impossible because of the town's restrictions. So, but I am next year, the one thing I am going to do is provide a a dealer buffet. You see, if I sell food, I have to get all kinds of permits individually for every truck, and they have to apply for it. So, and then I have to pay for it on top of it. So, we have small town thinking here, and it's really not fitting in. So I just said, oh, I'm not dealing with this. And so I nixed it, and I told everybody to bring their own. And but I figured out a way for next year, because people want to go back, that I'm going to be able to set up, like 3 tables for all the dealers. What if I know how many people are coming? And it's going to be an all day out for the dealers. The public is still going to have to suffer a little, because I can't go through, all the, nuances that these small towns have in their rules and laws and everything else. So, but there will be edibles for my dealers. I got to take care of my dealers, that's for sure.
Be careful with the edibles for dealers, because that now you got my interest piqued, and I might. No, I'm kidding. Well, Mike, we're kind of up against it. I appreciate you getting through some of the difficulties and calling in, and so tell us what's the next show. And again, it sounds like you're planning another outdoor show a year from now. Is it going to be the same location? It sounds like.
Well, I honestly didn't want to go back to Wickford, because I wanted to get a bigger city that doesn't want to deal with all these small things. And but the dealer said it was so beautiful where it was, and it was just everything was it was a picture perfect day for everything. There wasn't a single problem in the entire day, from A to Z, from the weather to the I had to think about renting porta-johns for the public. That's you gotta sit down, and that's what I do for months, is no matter how many times you think about something, you miss something. And the one dealer had said, Mike, I'll help if you will do this once a month in the summer. It's I love the dealer's passion that I have with my dealers, the passion, but I have to have weather cooperate. I was telling people months before the show went off, I said, I'm either going to be hero or goat. If it rains, I'm the goat. And because everybody said, don't do it. But for whatever reason, I became a hero and so next year it's going to be bigger. I hope, see that this is why I only have it as a 1-day event, because it's only Saturday. Come in at sun up, and you can stay until sundown if you want. But Sunday is the rain date, so it's a vacant date. So you can get all your hours in if you want, if the crowds or public is there. And the one thing that I learned, which I was hoping was for the tourist trade, they didn't show up. So the sports card guys were done by the place was like a park. So the tourists, I guess, because beach. So, and how can you believe them? So there's a lot of little things to consider, but we have of course, the October show now is a 2-day event indoors, which gets dealers and the public from 13 states. So it's the Cranston Sports Card Show. It's going to be its 2nd year in October. It's Columbus weekend, and and then after, everybody, of course, idolizes the Super Bowl weekend show, because that's been around since 1976, and that brings people from everywhere.
Well, Mike, we appreciate you calling in, sharing some of the details of that event. And like you said, you learn trial and error, right? So this next incarnation of it next year, it sounds like it's going to be bigger, better. I might, we'll see what's going on at that time. Maybe I'll make the trip here from Syracuse, New York. To be fair, I appreciate give out any socials or websites where people can find out more information about your shows.
Fantastic. We're on all social media networks. I have a great team. John Zoli covers our Twitter, which is X. Instagram, and TikTok, and I handle Facebook. So we work together because Facebook is all I can handle, and so we post up on those 4 different places. And I will tell you this because somebody called me a week before the show and said, "Hey, Mike," because I was deeming this the sports card vacation because of the everything that I've already talked about regarding the place and the town. Um, and he called me from southern New Jersey and said, "Hey, Mike, I was thinking of coming from I think he was Cape May." He says, "And bringing the wife and the kids and making it a vacation. I was going to shop for cards, and she was going to be able to enjoy the town and etc." And I said, like, one of the big reasons I'm making this a 1-day event is that the hotels in Rhode Island, as the ocean state, are so incredibly expensive. I wanted everybody to try to avoid. So I said, "Listen, um, let me know if you can get a hotel because it's near impossible." I mean, like a Hampton Inn that we use for the February show in Coventry is $89 in February, but it's $325 right now. So the rates skyrocket in the summer, and then of course there's Newport is around. Everything is around the corner in Rhode Island. So if you stay in Providence, you could be vacationing in Newport, but there aren't a lot of hotels, and that was a trying to conserve the dealer costs. So all I will say is for anybody. So I texted out the gentleman that called me from southern Jersey, and I said, "Did you find a hotel?" He said, "No, I couldn't get a hotel." So it is just for Rhode Island, for being the little guy. It's got big rates in the summer.
Well, Mike, we appreciate it. We got to wrap it up here. We went a little overtime, but I thought it was a cool story for sure. And, sound like a lot of kids attended. And that's, I know Danny feels the same way. I'm a big kids in the hobby guy. They're the future that carries this hobby forward. So thank you for putting on the event and look forward to the next ones. Cranston Card Show. That's kind of your social media handle so people can find what's going on, right?
Yes, the Cranston Sports Card Show itself is a trademarked brand, and and just so you know how much behind I am what you just said, I'm creating a board member to handle children's activities at our card show for gaming and things to do because I haven't forgotten. I've been in this hobby since I've been like 10 years old, so I remember the fun I had. And most kids now are finding fun by having those really hard black cases coming in with cards that they're going to trade, but they have no idea about what pitching cards was like and all of the fun activities that we did as kids with our sports cards. Of course, they weren't worth $2,000, but there could be things that kids are going to do, and I'm not really, because I'm not that young anymore. I'm not really in touch with what kids really enjoy about the hobby, and that's we want to emphasize for the kids. They're our new generation, and we want them to have fun, and before they get to be an adult and have to do whatever they want to do. That may be different.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you making some time for us. Continued success. I'll keep tabs on what's going on, and maybe the next outdoor one. Maybe I'll take a nice trip out there and do some coverage of it live and in person. Danny, I know as well.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me, and I apologize for the difficulty that I had today. But it's always fun talking about the hobby and how we can make things better and more fun.
All right. Thanks, Mike. We'll see you soon.
Take care. Thank you.
All right. A little overtime there, Danny, but and Mike C had to run. He had an appointment to get to, so that's why he had a hard out, so he had to exit stage left. But we went a little overtime, but I thought it was important. You don't get these outside shows all the time, and who better to hear from but the guy who put it all together and made it happen. So we don't go long all the time, but we did this week. So for those of you that stuck with us, Thank you for those of you that are going to listen to this on audio version. We appreciate you just the same. Whether you watch live or the audio version, you could be doing something else. And so we appreciate your time and dedication to Hobby Hotline. With that being said, we'll wrap it up for Danny. Any last words before we call it a day?
I thought this was a fantastic show. It was good to see a lot of people in the chat today be very active, and this is why we do it. So glad to be on Bench Clear this morning, and remember Hobby Hotline every Saturday morning and first Tuesday every month.
And maybe a new trend going to be set by Mr. Magnusarian, edibles for dealers at card shows.
Now that might be the real breakthrough, not outdoors.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to get out of here.
See ya.